Okay, to the joinees, my name is Ankit Sharma, and I have spent 70% to 80% of my life till date in studying. So I have two doctorates in total. So I had a master's degree in agriculture, then a PhD in genetics, then a fellow in management sciences. It means a MBA and a PhD in finance and accounting from IIM Indore. So all those who are from IIM, they know about fellow programs. Others might not be knowing. It is equivalent to a PhD program. So initially, I started my career as a vice president in one of the startups. After 1 year, I shifted to second startup in Bengaluru. Later on, it was acquired by another company. Then I shifted to academics. For last 4 years, I am teaching students fixed income securities and statistics in Chandragupta Institute of Management, Patna. So this is about my academic journey till now. And currently, I am mentoring few startups. Let us see how the things proceed ahead. Over to you, sir.
Okay, Ankit. The remaining are Veena Ganesh. She's a brilliant postgraduate in chemistry. Then she studied psychology, and she is now a very successful practicing psychotherapist. Then there is Nitya Sok. She is multi-talented. I don't know her complete details. Anyway, she is in Darwin, Australia. She has been with one of the top computer companies in the world. What is that? CSC.
Yeah, DXC Technologies.
Yeah, yeah, CSC. And then she resigned that job, started her own venture. Then right now she is working for a top department of the government of Australia. Then there is Ashwati. She is an architect, and she has been working, or maybe even currently working with perhaps the topmost architectural firm in the country. Uh, Then there is Priya or Meenakshi. She is a PhD from IIT Madras and a top ranker in all her academics and currently a professor in Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. Then there is Parvati. Parvati, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah, Parvati. I think she is a very accomplished HR consultant or HR head of Mahindra Tech certain division in Bangalore. Then there is Naveen Chandra, he's a senior administrative officer in the government of Gujarat. Then there is Tintin. He is he was just before the head of the Indian operations of a Canadian global IT company, and right now he's a consultant for Deloitte. And then there is Ramesh Manikam, who is an MTech from IIT Delhi, and he had his enterprise for about 13 years. He designed some of the major well-known vehicles in India. So right now he is heading a central department of Siemens in Bangalore. These are the people right now. We are awaiting one more guy. He is the head of marketing of a textile company. Then yeah, that's it. That's it. Then I am finally just a researcher throughout my life, researching existence and the details of it in whatever form it appeared to me. All right. So, Ankit, he being a very dedicated academician as well as a researcher, I'm just giving a brief background of what has been going on in these sessions, which often last for more than 3 hours of most Saturdays and uh, almost uh, kind of as of now every Wednesday also. And it started sometime in October 2020, and it will continue minimum up till 2021 December. So the name of the program is Genius Choice Fellow. So I have a registered institution by name Genius Choice Institute. So, in a way, it will entail a certification of Genius Choice Fellow. So, we are dealing with the dimensions of genius in its true sense, in its core sense, not genius in physics or genius in chemistry like that, but the genius in self, which I personally consider as the ultimate of geniusness. Not only I, most of the top researchers in creativity also agree that, and the greatest philosophies and perspectives in the world, including our Upanishads and Vedanta, as well as the core of Western philosophy, as well as other types of Eastern philosophy like Tibetan Buddhism or Tao or Zen. All of those great seers and mystics unanimously declare that the ultimate possibility of the human condition is to get in tune with the attendant spirit or that operating uh, field in the entity. And the term genius actually means the attendant spirit of a person by the very dictionary meaning itself. So we follow that. Mainly, the focus of training is in developing the creative analytic competency of the participants. And secondly, developing the scaffolding, developing the required perspectives and concepts and methodologies to liberate the mind from the traps, what we call the mental traps. Perhaps Ankit know that book of mine, the nine mental traps. So, because of the assumption that the greatness and the wonder and the intellect or the potentialities of the human entity uh, present probably in every standard human being, they are all kind of blocked from the attention of the individual because of the certain mindsets which we call mental traps. Of course, they are a well-known topic in all creativity research domains. But I am, of course, much familiar with mental traps by my huge background of doing research on mental traps for about 20 years and conducting more than 300 programs for senior managers and schools and colleges and various types of institutions. And of course, I follow the mental traps suggested by my doctoral guide, Dr. Pradeep Khandwala. And thirdly, to give them absolute control, mastery over the most critical tool of the human being, namely language, which we call by the name creative language control. It is not necessarily about using poetic language, but to understand whatever is symbolized, pointed out, or referred to by the languages. And language is the most available thing in human world. And all knowledges, all perspectives, all sensitivities about the physical and the metaphysical and the separate realities are all conceived in language. So, to master the language, rather, master the language in such a way that they can transcend the language and see and perceive and experience and observe the referred realities of language. These are the three main focuses. So, that's all in brief about this program, Ankit. So it is not that comfortable maybe to enter in between. So, but today is a possibility. The letter, this is the 29th, not 29 exactly, but there are subdivisions. So maybe about 50th or 51st session. So in this series of sessions, everyone is presenting their own perceptions about their mind.
Okay.
Because I do not believe in understanding a general theory of mind or available theories of mind. There are plenty of theories of mind in psychology, and every major philosophy in the world. They are all basically about psychology of human beings, and especially about the mind. So here, instead of they are all highly educated people now, you know. and very unique people. They have been precisely selected. Ankit, you may not believe, I selected them over a period of minimum 3 to 4 years.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So, because they only can really assimilate and originalize the level of perspectives I have been able to discover over my tumultuous journey of research for the last 50 years. So, everyone is capable of making theories, and what is required, Ankit, in this context, my perspective is that one has to know one's own mind rather than trying to force fit an available framework to look at the mind. And that is our general philosophy also, what we call referent perception or referent reality perception. Like the word chair is about that object chair upon which you are sitting. One cannot sit on chair. So chair is nothing but the name of that device. So is the case with every other word in every language in the world. Every word is nothing but a name. So the requirement is to see, using the symbol of the name, using the key of the name, to see the referent. That means whatever is referred to by that name, and to see the realities of that referent. That is the method. So here, by the assignment of developing theories about mind, they are trying to observe the referent of whatever we name or they name, or most of the time everybody uses the word mind. So whatever they observe about
It's
their referent of mind
1945.
must be their theory, must be the reality for them. That is the perspective. So already four of them have presented. Every time we may not ask, everybody may not present because every presentation goes for about 3+ hours. Ankit. Presentation may be only about 3 slides. It's not just presenting the slides. There will be feedback and discussion on that. So last time the session was, for example, Parvati. Her slide, she had only virtually 3 slides, but we discussed on it for about 3+ hours. Sorry, not Parvati, yeah. So is the case with Veena Ganesh or Asadi and all other people. And now there is one guy you can see, he's Vinay Lal. He's an MBA and he's the head of marketing of textile company. So Vinay, I was talking about Ankit Sharma. He's a professor at Chandragupta Institute of Management and a doctoral guide. Yeah, so I introduced him to the group. So that's okay. I talked about you also. You are not present. All right, coming back.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Naveen.
Good evening, Ankit, sir. I am
Yeah, good
Naveen.
evening. Yeah.
From, sir, I am from EXPM 3 third batch. I am very grateful to you, Ankit, sir. You are such a
Okay.
great. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I remember you as you have done a very and a good class. We have given us very good knowledge on research methodology, especially. I am very grateful to you. It was so much
Okay.
vague for me. Oh, yes, sir. I remember you thoroughly, sir. And I'm
Thank you.
very pleased to find you here. I'm very pleased to see you here, to find you here, sir.
Thank you,
Research
Naveen.
methodology, yes, sir, yes, sir. How are you, sir? Very fine.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now,
All right, Parvati, you wanted to present your ideas on something, right?
Um, no, I'm stuck somewhere. I have not completed it, Sundarji.
All right, that's okay. All right, who else wants to present his or her theory on mind? Anybody left? Anybody would like to? Almost everyone presented, I suppose, right?
I have my presentation to be done, but I'm not sure if I can finish it in 1 hour, and I need to leave by 9. So,
All right, sir.
I have not presented either, sir. Anu
I
here.
haven't done either. So,
Yeah. Okay, then between Anuradha and Nitya, who is going to present now? Are you
once.
ready?
I'm not ready, sir. I thought Nitya was doing today.
All right, Nitya?
I was, sir, I had actually prepared one for the mental blocks. Um,
Oh, that's the one to do. Okay.
that's the one that I was thinking of doing it today.
All right, then, oh, yeah, yeah, then why don't you do it? All right.
Okay, I'll probably do that. Yeah. Okay.
And that will be a little bit beneficial for Ankit also.
Okay. 1 second.
Definitely, sir.
Present winter. Are you able to see?
Yeah, waiting. Yeah, yes.
Okay. 1 second. I'll just make it.
Ankit, Nitya is talking from Darwin, Australia. Now the time there is about 12:30 p.m. night. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's okay. Hello. Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Good evening.
This is
Good evening.
this is a short presentation that. Hi. I can't see your faces when I'm presenting, so probably I'll just if I make it lower, can you still see my slides?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that is
yes,
good.
yes.
Okay. Um, yeah, this presentation that I made is on mental blocks, and it is based on Sir's book on 9 mental traps of the corporate India. So that is the context. So all the ideas that are in the presentation is linked to that book and my understanding um, on the mental traps, what I learned and what I studied from the book. So first thing I call this presentation, what is there in the hidden valleys of our mind? Because the mental traps or the blocks that we are going to discuss, they are not actually easily visible. And when I looked at this picture, it's a valley in somewhere in a mountainous area where you'll see the valley only if you reach there. Many times when we travel in places like Manali and Shimla and all, like you travel through very narrow roads, and on the other side you will see um, deep rivers flowing, and you will be having a feeling of fear. What if you fall in there and you don't know what is there? Like the water may be cold or whatever is there, we wouldn't have much idea. But that's what, like when I think about our brain and the curves we have and the valleys we have, I thought this may be a connection to what we are going to discover today. So
But unlike other presentations everywhere in the world, there will be interventions everywhere in between. All right, ready, Nitya?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
So I started with this this slide. That is, every child is a genius, or every child is a unique person, or every child is gifted. We hear that one way or the other when we are growing up. But if that is true, then the world will be filled with genius people at this stage. And that's not what we see often. So that is kind of an exploration that I want to take you through this journey, that why it is not happening if every child is born with that potential, then why it is not reaching that potential? So that is the purpose that we are going to see in the next slides. So is there a problem really? If people are not reaching their potential, then if then there should be a real problem somewhere. And if that problem is there, where is that problem? So as we know, the science says that, like, the human brain is filled with so many neurons, about 90 billion neurons, which we don't actually see or we don't actually use. And still, we are not using our brain powerfully. So does that mean that we have the hardware but not the software to run it? What I mean is, like, if we have got the hardware, all brains are with the 90 billion neurons. What is it running with? What software it is running with? And why this hardware is not being used much? I come from the IT background and engineering background, so the hardware is often that we point out, like, if things are not working, we say, okay, maybe you need a better computer, we need more memory, we need a better processor, and so on. So that's why I use this analogy, like, is it a virus program somewhere that is blocking us? So these are the questions that I started with, and I also hope that by this presentation you will also join this journey of what is affecting our own growth, our own expressions, our own behaviors, and our own journey in life. So how we perceive that, if we examine our mind, it is actually made up of many mindsets. Say, for instance, if I'm saying that I'm a Malayali, there are certain attributes, like I come from a particular state in India where the language spoken is Malayalam predominantly. But Malayali is not only that language. Malayali is not only um, limited by that language. It is also the customs and the traditions and the values and the beliefs and the way we grow up. Only, for instance, my son is grown up here and he speaks Malayalam, but he doesn't become a full Malayali because he doesn't know. He doesn't even know the full stories, or he doesn't know the literature. He doesn't know the songs. He doesn't know the culture, and he doesn't know so many other things. So it is a mindset that we carry. Similarly, if I think of my mindset of a teacher will have.
Wait there.
Yes, sir.
That itself, looking at the example of your son, can you
Mm-hmm.
interpret the way of the mental blocks or mindsets that are trapping? Using your own
Yes.
metaphor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Can
I'm
you?
also thinking that I have a picture of the Malayali in my mind. That is why I don't consider him as a 100% Malayali.
Not that is not the interpretation to get here, because your intent of the presentation is to clarify mainly, I suppose, 3 points. One is to invite the reflective attention of the audience here
Mm-hmm.
about the phenomenon called mindsets that are trapping in nature or mental traps.
Yep.
Second is to talk about various types of mental traps, and third is to uh, discuss
Answer.
about the ways of resolving them.
Yes.
So you began with a beautiful metaphor.
Yep.
Okay, that metaphor is about something visible.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. That's true.
uh,
Yes.
but the so-called mind and even the brain is not visible.
Yes.
Brain is not sensible. So that could have thought about some other metaphor also. Now, coming back to the point which I intervened, the example of your son is actually
Yep.
very relevant here.
Mm-hmm.
That is, he is born a Malayali.
Yes.
That is, the Malayali potentiality is there within him,
Yes.
but they are hidden. See,
Yes.
like
Or it is not
the
fully grown.
fully grown, and when you talk about this, you have to be very careful about every word. It is not growth or anything, because growth has a different reference. Not
Fully
fully
developed.
developed or
Developed.
fully
Yeah.
evolved or fully uh, uh, extended into possibilities.
Mm.
Here, basically, he is born to Malayali parents.
Yes.
He has been to Kerala state maybe around 5 or 10 times.
Yes.
So potentially, his uh, uh, his core mind contains that Malayaliness in him, but most of them is covered. This is what you also said. The geniusness is contained in everyone,
Yes.
but they have not been triggered. They have not been stimulated, or they have not been evoked by various required software programs.
Yes.
Like your son is not exposed to the literature of Kerala state, the culture of Kerala state, the media, the various attitudes and values, and the other so-called collective unconscious factors of Kerala state. Therefore, he cannot be a full Malayali.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the way you could utilize the example of your son.
Yes. Yes.
Same is the case with the genius.
Yeah.
As you said, every child is theoretically having that 90 billion neurons in the brain. That is the so-called hardware which you compare to.
Yes.
But in a computer, the hardware, I'm not much aware of the details of the computer, but as I understand, the hardware is created so as to apply the software.
Yes.
It is not that the hardware was just like that created, and then subsequently softwares were developed not to utilize the hardware. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
in the case of human beings, the hardware is already created by the process of the nature. The
Mm-hmm.
280 days of evolution of the embryo, that hardware is almost completely finished. So the language, the various knowledges, the various training about activities, about expressions, about responses, about behaviors, about ways of relating to people, about the higher order functions of thinking, conceptualization, imagination, visualization, reflection, all these varied intellects or potentialities of that software are not triggered even. In the
Yes.
schools, what happens? At home, what happens? When you talk about software, the greatest hardware is there in the ever available, ever ready, ever sensitive to receive almost any software virtually. It could be the software of Hindustani music, it could be the software of uh, drawing or dancing or thinking or imagination and all kinds of possibilities. But the environment, the development environment did not have the uh, capacity either to forget about capacity. They did not have most of the softwares about how to evolve the genius levels of the baby. And even if they have had it, perhaps inducing that software into the hardware is not just by talking, not just by talking a language. For example, the software, the hardware possibilities of good character, good behavior, good ethical sensitivity. That a lot of parents talk to the children. They just talk. But that talking, unlike in the machine language of your computer, will not straight away assemble the required set of hardware components and hardware assemblages. Because for the computer software, you have a computer language. Am I right?
Yes.
But for the gigantic, magnificent, mysterious hardware of the human entity, nobody knows what is the language.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is virtually no language possible because that hardware does not work on language alone. Of course, subsequently it is. That is the title of the invite today, Language and the Mind.
Yes.
And we are beginning with language and mind. Certain languages have been tried by the parents, by the media, by the culture, by the school teachers, by all well-wishers to the children. As I told some time back, even a criminal set of parents would be talking only the good language, advices, guidelines to their children anyway. But that language, the only software for human beings, the major software,
Yes.
the number one. And when you say language is the number one, there are no number two, number three, number four, number five, number six, absolutely empty. So by language, you just cannot trigger the hardware of the 90 billion neurons and its varied, immensely varied universe of configurations and combinations of mindsets. That is why as you said in the beginning, every standard child, not even 0.03 percentage of human beings do not ever reach their even half of their hardware potentialities. This I am telling you. By the way, for the information of Ankit, she is about to do a training program on mental blocks to another set of audience elsewhere. Ankit. That's why
Okay.
she has been given the opportunity to talk about this today.
Okay, sir.
Because she may not need our level of knowledge to talk about mental tasks to the audience to whom she is going to present this sometime next week.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
So this is a trial run for her.
Okay.
She is not completely equipped at the level of the Genius Choice program here to talk about explain mental blocks. But what Nitya you are already planning and what you have already done is quite sufficient to do what you want to do. Okay.
Okay.
So and whatever I talk can be utilized
Okay.
for your understanding.
Yeah, it will give me more clarity, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's all. So hardware, software example you can use to the audience, but you have to be very careful in the sense that someone among the audience may ask you, what is the software for triggering the hardware of genius in the children? But of course, you have that methodology here, and you have to say that it is by metaphor. All right. But they will understand it precisely. That is very good. So that metaphor you can use. And you are very good in using that metaphor because of the background in computers. All right, proceed.
okay.
Are you affected by this intervention?
No, sir.
All right.
No, not because. So, yeah, this is actually a continuation of what I already said. So, mind is nothing but a collection of mindsets. So, they are normally induced, taught, trained during the developmental phases. So that we all know that a newborn child doesn't have a clear mindset. So when it goes to the school or by the training of the parents, teachers, and other interaction with the society in large and the media, then it develops certain mindsets. So some of these blocks that we are going to talk about, that is also induced by these trainings. For instance, a newborn baby is really fearless about the fire, but if it is not blocked, or if fear is not instilled, or somebody has not blocked the child about the fire, it may get injured. So some blocks are induced unknowingly by the parents and the others. And similarly, for society at large, if people have got tendencies, if they follow only their own tendencies, there could be crimes, there could be unwanted behavior from the citizens. So all these laws and regulations are there to block the free movement of people. So in this session, we are coming back to that. But what I want to say is these mental blocks that we are going to talk about, it's actually nothing new. It is already there and we all have experienced some way or the other when we are growing up by the restrictions in the school or the rules in the society, or wherever we are going. Like if it is a game, there are rules for the games. All are there for improving the performance, or to put some system boundaries again around our behaviors and responses and other things. So these blocks are unintentionally induced.
So that is all you want to say about this part? No, no, no. That is very insufficient, Nitya.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
uh,
and
and
it's there is furthermore I'm talking about the blocks and the
no, no, no. What you
like.
said is already.
Mhm.
Will you be will you be continuing to explain what you already explained?
Yes.
All right then.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So coming, and one of the purposes is also to understand the mind of ours.
No, no, no,
And
no, no. Your the topic is changed. So you first of all do not use such an obvious example like fire.
okay.
Instead of that, you can use some other example of a child venturing out into the darkness in the night, or trying to get out into the rain during rainy season, and playing around with some breakable materials and things like that. There, the
Mhm.
parents or the elderly adults supervising the child are forced to interfere, because the child does not have that so-called controlled maturity to manage the details that may happen during that behaviors. Therefore, some kind of controlling is inevitable.
Yes.
Saying that, you have to say, in that process of controlling, mental blocks are also developed.
Mm.
That is what you have to say. Because the
Okay.
parents may not have the most appropriate configuration of language and expressions and
Yeah.
responses, because of the so-called total communication package, especially to a child, would comprise mostly expressions and ways of responses and ways of behaviors of the parents, because
Mhm.
the child may not have that complete language. So the parents may show certain faces, it may shout at the child, or many other responses are possible in order to prevent a little baby from
Yes.
certain disadvantageous responses from the child. So
Yes.
inevitably, in that process of shaping out the behavior, the required responses and behaviors and actions and the ways of relating, and the parents might inevitably induce certain mindsets which may act as blocks, and which will get generalized, which may trespass the boundaries of the given act and may spread out into other expressions. Rather, what happens there, you have to be very clear. That is, what is a little baby? It is
Mhm.
full of responses, random responses. Unless the child responds, how will you shape it? Unless the child moves, how can you train its walking? Unless the hand of the child is ready to pick up, how will you train it to pick up the spoon or pencil or pen? Unless the child is sounding, how will you train language into the child? So, a human baby, the most powerful entity in the world, will start expressing all possible, probable range of expressions and responses and behaviors and activities in the environment. At least 90% of which are not conducive to the way the home environment or the development environment is set and designed by the adults.
Mm.
The development environment of the child comprises the the conducive comfort zone design of the parents. Parents may be comfortable in using what you call a crystal glass, or an advanced TV remote control, or things like that. But the child is not. So, any expression or any behavior or any action of the child is very likely to cross the boundaries of the control systems that the parents have in mind, or parents have already set in a home environment. So, naturally, the child will cross the boundaries, and at every point of such crossing the boundaries, the parents will interfere, and depending upon the age level or whatever, point number one. depending upon the mindsets of the parents. Okay, parents we have to talk. They are also victims of mental troubles.
Yes.
And depending upon various other qualities of them, like controlled expression of emotions and things like that, depending on those aspects, the parent may interfere or intervene in the child in blocking that expression or response or behavior. In that process, only various mindsets of blocking characteristics are developed. Okay. So preventing the child to move toward the fire is required.
Yes.
For example, let us say so. But what kind of a dialogue is used by the father or the mother or a servant?
Mm.
Yeah. For example, if the child, let us visualize a possible situation. The child is almost little closer to the fire. If the servant or the mother or the father sees that, suddenly a panic sound will be generated by the adult. Oh, yo, no. With a sudden light thunderous sound, the adult may approach the child and quickly pick up the child, because child is very sensitive, delicate being and may say something. Of course, the child will realize that going there is something. It does not know what is danger and all. But as a result, the child has experienced the shock of his life. Get the point?
Yes.
Yeah. Instead, the parent, for example, should have gently went behind and gently picked up the child and who could have given a kiss on the cheek and just come back if the child does not understand the language. And because the example you have chosen is fire, it is very likely that only a child below the age of 1 only will go there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
any kind of sounding or shouting will not work there.
Mm.
And now, the so-called mother or father, that person got panicky and scared. As a result of which, there is a thunderous lightning and thunder and heavy rain of all kinds of expressions will follow that activity. So the child gets undefinable kind of fear-related emotions in the child, if you use the example of fire. Now, a 3-year-old child, it is quite natural that a child may say a so-called lie, which is called a white lie, because it has taken something, maybe a pen or a costly pen or whatever of the father, and it fell down, it broken, and when the child is asked, the child may tend to say, no, 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 I did not do that, because he is afraid already. And the father or the mother knows that it happened only by the child. But most of the time, the parents will immediately use the word, are you lying? You are lying. And they may show any expressions or any responses or any more dialogues that may even physically punish the child. Actually, for the child, it was not a lie. The child did not have any of the mindsets which the parents attributed to the child at that point of time.
Yeah. Very true.
So I am just giving examples.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
most
Yes,
of
sir.
the mental blocks are about the expression of the originality only. That you have to keep in mind.
Yes.
Mental blocks are not in the context of normal responses, normal behaviors, normal expressions, normal ways of relationships, normal level of activities, and normal language. Mental blocks are only in the context of geniusness of individuals. Those mental
Yes.
blocks are named actually in the domain of creativity research, blocks to creativity. Do not forget that. Blocks to genius. So when you say that, do not take the example of what you call fire and things like that.
Okay.
So you have to think
I
about.
I had another example of it's a real example. One of the known persons, her daughter is about 14 or 15, and she's more like an outgoing person. She like to ride the bike and go to the beach and roam around and all. And this lady, she's from Chennai, and she has got a bit more conservative attitude. So whenever the girl wants to go out, and she will go with her friends and also She will use some abusive words, she will use some comments. So as a result, next time when the child is going, when she asks, where are you going with Jack or somebody, like, she will say, no, I'm going with somebody else. So because they also will play around with what the mother is um, anticipating, they will know how to manage it. So it will be automatically, um, like, child know that the mother is thinking this way, then change her response as well.
No, no, no. Even this is not a good example.
Okay.
Because it's a 13-year-old girl, when she becomes mature, she may take the bike and go anywhere, go with boys or girls, whatever it is. This is precisely about the expression of higher order capabilities of the human being. We can look at examples of a child trying to write a poem. Almost every child would write 1 or 2, 3 lines of poetry during the primary classes. We are talking about them. We are not talking about the great majority of population. We are talking about that particular child who wrote one day 2 lines of something, and maybe the teacher, let us say the teacher, one teacher, she says, this is a poem. No, 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 this is not a poem. Or the mother says, so what is it? Why do you write poetry and all those things? Why don't you sit down and study? Or a child is ready to sing. Every child goes through the stage called babbling stage, where repeated sounds are made. La 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 la. Every child in the world. That was the location where a sensitive or sensible mother or father should have approached the child and picked up that moment and given a proper feedback. Instead of that, nobody notices it. That also is a kind of blocking. Because when you talk about a little bit complex it is, but when you hear that, I have to say this much, Nitya. So that's all. All this may not be required for your presentation to another group. Don't worry. But because we are discussing this, I have to say at least this much. Okay.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So,
Sure.
by the way, can you say why I said this?
Because you want me to be very clear about in my own understanding.
Point number 1. Point number 2. Why I said this?
If I'm not clear, I won't be able to communicate it to others as well.
That is more or less the same as point number 1. Point number 2.
To do it to my mentees. Like,
No.
if I see,
What is my question?
why did you make it very clear? Why?
No. Why I am interfering like this and explaining this to this level? That was my question. And I
Not
said,
to block me as well.
no. If I continue to say this, it may work as a block for you also.
Yes, that's why I say not to block me.
Yeah.
You explained it not to block me.
Yeah, because block, whatever we name as block, look at the referent. Do not leave access on referent and referent reality perception, Nitya. All right?
Okay.
Okay. So, this so-called mental block, it's just a name. They are all very, very subtle, extremely subtle pieces of emotions and tendencies of the original mind and the original powers of the child. Because all these so-called mental blocks are induced in an individual during the developmental time from, let us say, age 0, 3 to roughly 9 to 13 to 14, and sometimes even to the age of 20. Induction. Further, it may be triggered several times and get reinforced. So most of the mindsets which are working as blocks are introduced at such an early developmental time, as a result of which they are all in the so-called deeper layers of the non-conscious of the mind berg. Get the point? So I have to be careful even in talking to you now. This concept of mental traps is reserved for our session at a much later point of time, if you remember.
Yes.
But right now we do it Because right now, rather I asked you to do is because I want you to do a significant job, because you have been asked by a group of audience to do a presentation, do a talk on mental traps. At that time, you should do whatever you do in the as much as possible in the most correlated way. That's why I asked you to do this. All right. But when you
Okay.
do this, I must do these corrections. Like,
Yes.
do not use the obvious example of fire.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So whatever
Okay.
I told, you may jot down little points to be clear.
Yeah. I'm
And,
writing.
and
Sir,
whether at the same time you should not restrict yourself,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that the audience may not understand this. That also
Okay.
is a kind of a distant mental block only.
Yes.
You may reserve some of your explanations, assuming that the audience may not understand. It could be fact also.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as possible, you should touch the relative totality of whatever you want to talk.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
sir, can I
So,
have
yeah, yes, Veena.
in the example of the fire? Suppose the parents were not around or nobody was around, and the child gets itself burnt. That will lead to definitely some other block.
For example,
If it gets burnt in the fire
uh,
or injures itself,
uh,
then the fear of fire will also come.
that is okay. That is required for survival. That already
Yeah.
Nitya mentioned. So, what Nitya should have much more clearly mentioned is most of the so-called mental blocks are essential also.
Yes.
That is why they are induced by the parents. But they become a trap beyond that, as I told you, that inverted U curve, when it is
Mm.
more than the required dose.
Yes.
That is all. But anyway, do not use the example of fire.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely, sir. I'll
But
change it.
by the way, what was the point made by Veena Ganesh once again?
Mental blocks are inevitable. It will come happen some way
No,
or the
no,
other.
no, no, no. That is not what you
Yeah.
said. In case of fire, what did you say?
Yeah, if nobody was around when the
Yeah,
child goes near the fire, it will
yeah.
get, suppose it gets injured or burnt, burns his finger or something.
Huh. It may
Then
develop
not
it is
fear.
that is not called a mental block. That is an action block. That's a behavioral block. So it
Yes.
will learn to avoid such potentially dangerous things, dangerous to the survival of the organism. But normally, no child will go automatically, because even before reaching the fire, it will get the temperature. But if there is, let us say, heated iron box and all that, it may unknowingly touch it. But that is a problem of the environment. Whereas no animals enter into a dangerous situation. So a child will not. A child will not reach a fire, potentially hot area. Like that example of Nitesh actually not correct. No child will reach a fire point. No child. Not no animals even. Nobody. Because then the organic response, organic reflex will work. I told you the experiment of a crawling baby over a huge table with a transparent glass on top. Half of the glass is covered, opaque. The child will crawl till that point where opaqueness is there. After that, it is depth, and the child will stop there. That is not by any knowledge. It is the survival instinctive reflex provided to every organism. Okay? So fire is just not an example. I just accepted it so that Nitya could continue. No child will approach fire. It may get burned by sheer so-called accidents. That's all. Like
Hot iron.
it is approaching a burning candle, and when it touches the candle falls down. Something like that. It will not approach the flame. It cannot, because by the time you reach about 1 inch closer to the flame, there is the heat.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is
If it is
absolutely yeah.
no, sir. If it is a hot iron, which has
Yeah,
happened to
that's
my
what I,
son as well.
that is the not the problem of the child. That is
Yes.
the carelessness of the parents. That way burning, the child approached, not thinking that it is fire. Child did not know that it was hot. That object did not radiate heat.
Yes, that's true.
That is why. Get the point.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful in using examples and metaphors. It is not easy to just like I told you, our level is not ordinary level. Every one of you must be very careful. I told you, every one of you is highly educated, highly brilliant, having experience in the world. So all kinds of ideas are already there. Just do not pick one of them and put into a presentation because of convenience. Understand this forever. Okay? This I told you in the context of interpreting the water drop. So I told you, do not accept your first response to questions like this. Your first responses are all ordinary responses. Okay? So you have to redesign, reset, recreate another you in you. This I have been telling for the last 3 months. You are still continuing in the same velocity with the same mindsets. You are still happy with getting the knowledges of this program. What is the use of this knowledge if it is not translated into the doing and the being of you? For example, how can Veena say that the child will enter the fire? Not even a stupid child, not even a mentally retarded child will go to fire. How can you say that? So be aware of your logic and rationale. All your logic and rationale are of the ancient past of ordinary people. Okay. What you have is a high level academic qualification, okay, competency in your work performance. What wonderful work is your work? You're all doing work which anybody else in the world is also can do or are doing. What do you think about the level of a so-called genius? Why it is so-called 0.003%? You have to reduce the speed of your logic. You have to be reflective. You have to really reflect before you talk and before you present. From a referent reality perspective, Nitya did not apply the referent perspective. That's why you chose the stupid example of fire. And fire is the example you use in the context of genius. Okay. I myself told you an example of a university vice chancellor sitting and deeply thinking about correcting the final form of a thesis. I was also sitting there. And his butterfly-like daughter, I think she was in class 3 or class 4, approaching him and asking him, Papa, what are you doing? He said, nothing. Ankit, he said, nothing. And the child just walked away. That was an opportunity for him to induce the software. She should have told the child that I am thinking. He would not say that because of his stupid assumption that the child may not understand what he's thinking. Rather, even if he has an understanding, he just does not have the language to explain in such a way that even that the third standard child would understand. Lacking similar capacities in the minds of the parents and the teachers and other people, mental blocks are induced in the children. It is not about blocks to go outside for a journey or whatever. Or what is going? What the example of the girl which Nitya said? What she is going to suffer from if she does not go on a bike and all that? Nothing. Geniusness has nothing to do with biking, just going for a trip on a bike. But when she was a little girl, when she tried to kickstart the bike or something like that, if the parents said, no, don't try and all those things, then it is inducing a kind of a block towards something that a child cannot do. Child is developing a perception that, oh, this kind of things I should not try, which most of the parents do. That's why we have engineers in India today who just cannot open a domestic switch and correct it. Okay?
Exactly, sir.
Or I myself told the example of a little baby ready to go to a beggar, a so-called ugly-looking beggar on the gate. Every child will definitely go. But the parents will not allow. So that is a blocking. And why it is a blocking, Nitya? Because the parents will give that kind of language to the child. If you go there, he will catch you, he will take you, he will kidnap you, all kinds of things. Because they want an immediate effect. Parents are not at all patient. They just want quick results. The modern parents, especially modern educated parents, are that's some other trap. They are victims of quick results. So they don't have the time to patiently look at the child, trying to assess what it is feeling and use patient explanation of what is required and what is not required. So they make a quick comment. The beggar will take you away and cut your fingers. I have witnessed somebody telling that, in that film you saw a child with what you call blinded eyes and all that. The child was taken away by a beggar. So, in that, the child develops a kind of an eternal fear for the strangers and strange looking people. So, when you choose examples, Nitya, you look at the nature of the mindsets which are blocking. From that, you will create and design examples. Go to the mindsets that are blocking, go to the mental blocks. Slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, first one. Of course, the presentation is very beautiful. Keep it. Change some of the things. This will be very attractive for the normal audience. Don't bother about whatever I am talking. Whatever I am talking, they are for you to understand it more. They are not that relevant to an ordinary audience. Okay, understand that, Nitya.
Okay, sir.
All right.
So,
The figures you have chosen, etc. They are very. Go to block
okay.
number 1.
Okay.
Right away, you develop examples.
Yeah.
What is block mindset number 1?
Second. This is the first one.
Yeah.
So that's the fear, tension, anxiety of the ambiguous, uncertain, or complex.
Ambiguous and all those things that are ambiguous, uncertain. Why a complex thing is there? That also is ambiguous. Okay. Then
Yes.
unexpected, strange. Okay. All these come under that.
Yes.
Okay. As I told you, you get the balance on the bicycle not by directly accessing it, by behaving in the bicycle. So right now, can you identify, you or anybody, how this particular fear or anxiety or tension is induced in children. In which way? What all possible, probable scenarios you can visualize? Come on.
An overprotective environment where the child is not allowed to do anything on its own or go out on its own. Overparenting.
No, do not change the words, Meenakshi. Overparenting is a totally different concept, okay? So you already said overprotecting, okay?
Overprotecting.
Overparenting is, come on, Meenakshi, that's an ambiguous term. Whereas overprotection is much more closer to the referred reality, all right?
Okay, yeah, got it.
All right. Because parenting involves many other directions also. So if
Yes.
you are overprotecting, is much more correlated to the referent of what you are going to explain. All right. So overprotecting the child. Okay. Okay. Here is it. In which way overprotecting a child can lead to the formation of this mindset?
Sometimes overprotecting.
No. Okay, you can explain. All of you will explain. Yeah. What is your own explanation, Meenakshi?
So when you're overprotecting a child, you are preventing the child from developing those original responses and finding its own ways of dealing with what is ahead. So if you don't ever allow it, then the child will not develop the skill or the confidence to do something on its own. Like, for example, letting out a child to play in the outside in the garden in the evening. So if you say, no, don't go out, there'll be snakes. You are stopping a child from being careful and playing and enjoying nature and instilling a fear, which may not be true at all. That's what I meant by overprotecting.
All right. What Tintin wanted to say?
The child may do something and then there is a punishment. Like in olden days, we used to get thrashed. So that means you do something new, you get thrashed. So that is one association, punishment. Or if you try something and then come back with hurt, then you get punished for it, which means if you don't do it, you'll not get punished.
All right. Yeah.
Asking too many questions sometimes, instilling a doubt when they want to do something new, if you are, which they may not have full clarity, and then if you ask too many questions, how they are going to do, why they are going to do, and all those things, that also can be creating this fear and tension and anxiety.
That's a good example which many of the parents can quickly understand and relate. Use that as an example, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else who would like to add on any points to Nitya?
To add on to that,
today's till all possible variations of explanations and perceptions about clarifying mindsets to another audience. Okay.
To add to that, sir, a child sometimes asks the most direct questions because it maybe sees the referent more clearly because of lack of words interfering or lack of a language. So maybe a direct question is there, the parent can't answer either because of some cultural blocks or whatever.
No, do not go into that. That you are explaining the parents. Okay. Don't note that every one of you have to be much more considerate to be precise about your language. Right now, that's another point which I mentioned. Right now, in the context of inducing mental blocks to the children, Tintin talked about parents. In that process, Tintin went on to explain why parents are doing it. Cultural block and all that. Do not go there, right? That's not required now. Get the point.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, because we are concerned about the sword sharpness in our language, that is called creative language control. We are yet to come to the wonderful, the most powerful, the most wonderful, the most magical tool of human being, language. And precisely that most wonderful, I have no words to talk about that. That most magical tool is the most misused, the most carelessly inducted into the children, and the most carelessly exchanged in the interminable language exchange by the people. Okay. All right. So once again, so when the child asks a so-called difficult question, a question perceived as difficult for the parents to answer, or which is embarrassing for the parents to answer, etc., the parents would use that immediate technique of totally blocking the child from such questions. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Correct. All right.
And how parents describe about uncertain situations themselves. For instance,
Beautiful. 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 That's enough.
yeah.
That's enough. How parents present ambiguous situations, strange situations, unexpected situations, etc. Precise, that's all. Which often parents do. And you have to also say, Nitya, with a real, genuine, good intention, like Meenakshi said, my child should be protected from all kinds of disadvantages. Forget about injuries and all that. Okay? On the other hand, they are all trying to, I don't know what they are trying to create in a child. I don't know, actually. They have no goals, basically. The so-called parents do not have any purpose. What are they doing? Their doings, their dialoguing, their interaction with the child are not at all designed by a concern for inducing the geniusness, inducing the wonder, in making him a greater human being with all potentialities. Increasingly, what they after all do. And nowadays, by the age of 2 and 2.5, it is already sent to a so-called stupid, ridiculous place called a crèche, or what is that, nursery school, all ridiculous nonsense. So for them, they're all misunderstood people. So that's all. Forget about them. Let them do anything. We don't care. So that's a beautiful example, Nitya. Use that. Okay. Now you get ideas. Okay, Nitya. Now only you got the purpose of this presentation. Now you are becoming more clear about it. Now all the examples should be directly linkageable, correlatable to one or more of these mindsets which are acting as blocks. Got it?
Yes.
All right.
So
Okay.
that way,
Yeah.
sir,
Yeah.
that
Please.
way parents or teachers promote only conditioned responses for every fixed stimulus or actions. They do not promote variations.
Yeah. For
They
example.
they only like yes or no type answers, correct or incorrect type behaviors, and
Yeah.
that's why people are conditioned to get uh, fixed responses.
Yeah.
And whenever ambiguous or uncertain situations come, one get blocked. And
That program is very, 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 what you call it, efficiently imbibed by everybody. When the parents are protecting the child is not only developing the mindsets of this ambiguity, fear of ambiguity, they are also learning that I should protect myself in this way. Get the point, Nitya?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So look at the world. Look at the world of educated, employed people. At the core of their conscious mind and their unconscious mind, their main focus is somehow to ensure protection. How? Save as much of money as possible to face what you call unforeseen circumstances. Protect their image, protect their everywhere it is protection, protection, protection. That's why today the richest and the richer people are more affected by the virus than the ordinary people. Because all their sense of protection has become meaningless. Big palaces and Mercedes-Benz and air-conditioned bungalows and bank balances are all become irrelevant. So when the parents protecting, forget about that. Much more dangerous is the child also learns that I have to protect myself. So the child does not enter into a football field or a hockey field or a badminton field or such activities. And there are other mental blocks we are coming to. So talk about these aspects also, Nitya. The problem of protection.
Yeah.
Okay.
By protecting from doing, the child does not develop the competency of doing. Every parent is ultimately focused on developing knowing and knowing and knowing and knowing only. The child is not allowed to do. Even a 13-year-old boy or girl is not allowed to cook a cup of tea. Go, sit down and study. That's what Parvati was talking about the other day. An XLR topper, whatever BTech rank holder is not capable of even normal. That's what Parvati said. He is not capable of managing normal life. So, manage your language according to the type of audience also. If there are many parents involved, then talk like this, Nitya. Okay.
Okay, sir. I may not be presenting all the mental traps though. As
You talk only familiarity trap, speed
yeah,
trap, and
and the speed
self-importance
trap.
trap. Right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Because
So this is
for them, that is the most critical.
yeah.
You told two examples. One
Yeah.
about a child who was ready to take that toy and started exploring it, and the parents said not to. And the second child who was reluctant to start using it, even when the parents said. What could be that reason for a child to behave that way? Maybe it already has some kind of a block already.
Not necessarily. That's a good question. It could be that, but by what you call I told Parvati the standard human being. There are certain innate intentionalities for the entity, tendencies.
Okay.
Whereas you can see even in a kindergarten level, in a so-called nursery, if you observe the children, let us say 30 children, you can see some child just sitting in a corner doing with some object, or just like that sitting, and some other children. Because there are innate organic inclinations for a child. So the child may be observing it and it may not touch it because of the very appearance of the toy, because that house may not have many such objects. So
Okay.
that very appearance of the toy might have caused the child to look at it and reflect for some time. That also is possible. But as you can also easily think, there could be previous experiences where a child took something like that and the parents did not allow. That happens in most of the homes, because most of the homes will have breakable utensils, breakable articles, and especially in modern homes, high quality electronic devices and things like that. Yeah. Yes, Parvati.
Got it.
All right.
And so
So, yes,
you,
please come on.
you mentioned about a third context also. What was that?
Third contest.
Yes,
Third house.
third house.
In the third house, he just goes there and sitting there with the toy. Even before he opens the toy, the child locates it and goes there and gets it from him and opens it and explores it. He's a kind of a fearless, dynamic guy. That also is a good point.
Yeah, that happens.
They are the ones. For example, I have been teaching, or not teaching exactly, interacting with the students from 1972. I have often seen, most often, I don't remember actually an what do you call exemption. I would pick up the most notorious student in the class who is disliked by all teachers. And I would inevitably see that he was the most competent, most daring, most dynamic guy. But he was not good in studies, that's all.
So can I give an example here? 1 second.
Yeah, why not?
We had a get together after 25 years in our college, in our engineering college, and the principal at that time, he just asked about a guy. He was the most notorious at that time. Like, he used to command the girls, and he didn't used to attend the class, and he was really like a thug. And he used to get beaten up also by the other children sometime. And the principal asked, "Oh, so is Sebi here? Like, his name is Sebi. Has he come?" So people said, "Yeah, he is here." And then he narrated an incident. That time, this principal had just taken over, and it was a time there used to be a lot of strikes in our college, and the principal was also, being a newcomer, he was also struggling hard. And one day, this guy came to this principal's room and shouted at him, "Are you the principal?" Like, he said it in Malayalam. "Tananodo principal, like Tanake endu principal ado, Tan endu cheyunne," something like that. So literally means that, who are you? Like, are you the principal? What are you doing? That kind of a dialogue he made. So that made him think so much, and he changed and implemented rules, and he was very strict after that as well, like, in order not to progress with these strikes and everything. So out of all the people in our batch, he remembered this boy. So
Yeah, good.
because he had the originality to go and ask the principal, what you are doing, are you doing your job, that kind of he was so totally fearless, really.
That's right. Yeah, fearlessness is the number one requirement. That's why all the mystics say the greatest mastery is mastery over fear.
Yes, sir.
What the parents do first, somehow by love or by no love, or by various shades of love and various shades of that punishment, they ensure that the child has understood what is fear. It is very easy. This I have discussed some time back also. Because fear is a natural program of the organism, starting with the protozoa and amoeba, to the earthworm, to the monkey, to the most powerful lion, to the elephants, to the human being. Fear is a protection mechanism given to the entity. Like the sexual instinct, the fear instinct also is provided. Otherwise, the entity will go and end up in danger. All right. So it is very easy to induce fear. I mean, the referent of fear, not the fear like a fear of ghost or fear of whatever. That escape element, that hesitation element, that tendency to be overcautious, to be suspicious, that element. Because using that only, the parents are exercising more and more control and governance on the child. If you do not do this, it will happen. If you go there, there will be biting dogs or snakes or whatever, or bhood will be there in the darkness. So always that fear element is used. So all of you are already big parents, already grown-up children. So when you come across other parents, gently guide them, because they all have, like Parvati said, a theory of parenting. That's the funny part, Even to become a third grade messenger in a panchayat office, you need minimum class 10 pass. In order to create a child, any idiot can do that. So every parent is a theorist. He has a theory of parenting. So you have to be very careful. Yeah, you have to be very careful. Unless a parent comes and asks you, just don't give any guidance. Or unless you are so sure about your communicability, openness of that person, that then also with a careful language, carefully constructed syntax of language only, you introduce some change in their theory of parenting. Everyone assumes very easily. Parenting is again a modern word. To be a father or a mother means protect the child, take the child, kiss the child, hug the child, give it good food, good environment, good dress, good bed, and goody environment. And when it grows up, talk only sweet languages and take it to nursery school and buy good books, colorful books. And this is called child rearing. That's why we have the normal distribution of population. Okay, that is essential. But we are talking about geniusness. We are talking about triggering the wonder of the human being. Then there was no need of human being in this planet Earth. Monkeys, quite enough. Now a lot of parents, they are very happy my child is good in gaming. And a lot of children also, I see, very proud about so-called ridiculous bloody gaming. They just don't realize that they are only pressing the buttons. Game is the design of that guy who created the program. They are just pressing the buttons, that's all. And they think that they are playing a game. Thereby, great amount of originality and creativity and great lot of things are actually lost forever. Other than eyesight.